Okay, hey, welcome everybody. It's Alix Sabatelli Rager with Sweet Spot Power, and I'm excited to bring you a new guest today, and we're going to be talking about far infrared saunas. You know that I totally geek out on helping people to reach their highest potentiality, and what I've really learned is that we are really gunked up. We're gunked up, we're toxic, we're not moving our bodies enough, and there's a lot that we can do working with the body that can help to open up a new clarity, a new level of health and vibrancy and energy, and again, that aligning with your purpose and getting out and doing what you're called to do in the world. That's what I'm all about. That's what the Sweet Spot is all about. And so today we're going to dive into one of my favorite tools that I had found, 2007, with a far infrared sauna. It was an investment. It was an investment in my health, but you know, I value my health. I always have, and I couldn't be more grateful to have this beautiful like machine in my house, tucked into one of my closets in my bedroom, and I use it multiple times a week. It has been incredible. And when the people see it, they're like, "What is that? And how does that work differently?" And some people already know about these, and they understand that they're really great, and they pay a lot of money at the spa to use them. But what about having one at home? And this isn't meant to be a sales thing. This is really for you to just kind of understand what the value of these saunas are. And this might be something that really is, you know, a treatment that you might be able to utilize or use, or something you want to do for yourself by bringing it into your home, because we're supposed to live a lot longer than we are, and we're not. So it's time to kind of wake up, and this is a really great tool for that. So I'm introducing to you to Dr. Jenna Greenfield, who is from High-Tech Health in Colorado. She is a pediatric, or was a pediatric ER doctor, and she studied at Jefferson Medical School in Philadelphia. And she has made this a bit of a transition into prevention and alternative modalities, like so many people have, in helping people to reach a much higher level of health naturally. And so she's a product specialist, researcher, and medical writer with this company, High-Tech Health. She has a couple of kiddos, and she's here to share her knowledge, what she's learned, to help kind of unpack this incredible tool called a far infrared sauna. So welcome to the call, or to our little Zoom here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like to just share a little bit about what inspired you to get into this field, and just a little bit of your excitement about it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the health benefits are incredible to the saunas, far infrared saunas. It's really, you know, if you could market, I mean, a pill that did half of what the sauna does, I mean, it was really, you know, it would be a gold mine. And so it's really cool that, you know, just a sauna session, you know, just in doing the research, I'm really blown away by, you know, all the health benefits, cardiac, the brain health, you know, detoxification. Yeah, so it's been really exciting. And I've been using mine now for a little regularly for a little while, and it's great.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're going to unpack a lot of that stuff, because I am a total geek when it comes to science and understanding the different pathways and the different avenues to, you know, just getting ourselves back, getting ourselves back to an optimal level of health. And again, I think the most exciting part for me is the mental clarity. You know, I didn't know I had brain fog until I lifted the brain fog, and I already was healthy and doing a lot of things right. And so to be able to reach a new level, and then the next new level, and try the next new thing, and then follow the trail as to what could be the aspect of that tool or that nutrition thing or whatever, in this case in the sauna, what is it about it, you know? So that's what I really want to dive into. So in kind of opening the conversation, what I talk about overall that is bringing us to a lower, like what I call a down spiral, a lower level of potentiality, of expression of our potential, are three main stressors. We've got physical stress, we have chemical stress, and we have emotional stress. And so clearly the sauna, we're going to kind of take a look at how the sauna can affect all of these, maybe not super clean in order, but I want you to have that frame of realizing that we really holistically want to take that down spiral and bring it to an up spiral. So when you think of like physical stress, we're looking at body trauma, working out really hard and recovery, hurting yourself physically, breaking bones, things like that, physical stress. When we look at chemical stress, I'm actually going to share my screen really briefly. This is a slide that you probably have seen on some of the other Zooms and recordings that I have. This is chemical stress. Chemical stress is a real big deal. We're talking about the air that we breathe, what we are absorbing in our skin, our digestion, self-administered toxins. This is a toxic load. Chemical toxins, pollutants, allergens, heavy metals, stress hormones. We'll talk about that as emotional stress, but there's hormones that are produced in that emotional stress that are important. And then we're looking at internally produced toxins and microorganisms, bacteria, mold, fungus, you know, all that stuff, viruses. So that's really what we're looking to just keep in mind around this chemical stress that we have such a load with. And then the third being, of course, emotional stress. And the world we live in today, what can we say? It's a disaster, you know, in terms of the potentiality for emotional stress. You know, I won't even get into the conversation. Let's just say emotional stress is a big deal. And I think that a lot of the toxicity is also, you know, they all kind of feed each other. The toxicity is creating emotional stress, anxiety, depression, and kind of keeping us from being able to get into that up spiral. So with that framing, let's dive in a little bit. So let's start first with what is a far infrared sauna versus a traditional sauna? Like, what can you just tell us about saunas in general?
Yeah. So infrared is a band of light beyond the visual spectrum. It's absorbed directly by our cells. So it heats the body and it mobilizes toxins out of fat cells. So as far as the difference between an infrared sauna and a traditional sauna just heats us by heating the air. So we just absorb the heat from the air. Whereas the far infrared heats us directly. I usually think of it as the difference between a microwave oven and a conventional oven. So we get a deeper and faster heating with the far infrared, with the air not having to get as hot as a traditional sauna.
And so I've heard too that like if you live somewhere where it's cold, right? Or if you're a skier or something and you go out and it's freezing cold out, but it's a sunny day, mm-hmm. and you feel that heat that's coming through, isn't that the far infrared rays?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. So so how would you compare then the feeling of being in a far infrared versus a standard heat sauna?
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, the far infrared, it's been shown to release endorphins. So, I mean, that's why, you know, you feel good at the beach, for example, because the sand reflects the far infrared. And, you know, just like you feel good at the beach when you're absorbed by all the reflected infrared, you feel good in your sauna. It's been shown to release.
But it's not as hot, right? Like
it's not as hot. Yes, it's not as hot as a traditional sauna. So it's more comfortable. But you're still getting the same effects or even, you know, more effects actually beyond the traditional sauna. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't sit in traditional sauna. I mean, no way. It's like, and then when people pour over the rocks and stuff like that, it's just like, I can't.
And then because it's dry, you also get more sweating. You know, if you're in a humid environment, that kind of prevents you from sweating. Whereas a dry environment, the sweat evaporates and you are able to sweat more. We can actually sweat once you're heat acclimated, which you sweat more and more as you acclimate to the heat. But someone who is heat acclimated can actually sweat up to 2 liters an hour in an infrared sauna.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a lot of
That's crazy.
A lot of time.
And I had written down, this is a perfect time to ask the question then. So when you're using a far infrared sauna, so you have to acclimate to the heat first and then you start sweating more, right? And it doesn't feel as hot. So
correct. So heat acclimation is the result of a chronic repeated exposure to heat. It causes physiologic adaptations in our body to dissipate heat better. So we sweat sooner, we sweat more, we get increased blood flow to the skin surface. We actually have a lower heart rate than before we're heat acclimated. And actually one of the coolest things is that we're going to talk about later is people who are heat acclimated have higher basal levels of heat shock proteins. I don't know if you want to now or later, but it could be a little preview. But yeah, be a heat acclimated person you know, there's all kinds of health benefits to just to that state of being heat acclimated.
That's cool. That's cool. You know, I started learning a little bit more about doing cold plunges, and you know, I have a pool, and of course now it's getting warm, so it's not nearly as shocking, but I just said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I was go from the hot tub to the cold plunge to the hot tub. And then I started doing it with the sauna. I get out of the sauna and then I try to do a cold shower, which is impossible. I can jump in the pool, but turning on the cold water in the shower. But I started doing this, and I don't know, it was like the stimulation of the skin was so much more. I really, it seemed like a really incredible treatment. I don't really know what's going on. I didn't study it really deeply, but do you know any more about that? Like that
I do. Yeah, there is some evidence that the back and forth from heat to cold, it actually increases the production of these things called heat shock proteins. So heat shock proteins are present in all of our cells. They protect our proteins from damage. So our proteins, which are just essential for the function of our cells, the structural components, enzymes, reactions, you know, antibodies. I mean, we're made up of proteins. And heat shock proteins protect those proteins. And when we're heated, or when our cells are stressed, we increase the levels of them to protect our cells. And so that kind of going back and forth to the cold to the hot, it's an additional stress on our cells, and it ramps up heat shock proteins even more than just the heat does, but the heat alone does as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, a cell that has increased levels of heat shock protein is just resistant to all kinds of stress, and there's just so many health benefits to that. We become hardier, more resistant.
That's really cool, because one of the things I talk a lot about is epigenetics, and how the environment it's like, you know, you have a fish and you have it in dirty water, that clearly the fish isn't going to thrive very well. They might adapt, but they're adapting to crappy water. Whereas you change the environment, you put them in nice, clean, healthy water, and it's going to definitely thrive. And so I'm just saying this, you know, obviously for people watching. And so the environment affects the expression of the potentiality of the organism, or the cell, or the person, or what have you. So what I'm hearing in this case is, you know, if, you know, when I talk about genes, and genes are inside of our DNA, and that's what basically produces our proteins. And so when things are different genes are upregulated and downregulated, it's spitting out the quality of the proteins, and which will change the functionality of the cell, and so on and so on, and the organs and the whole body. So we're looking at literally a cellular DNA level, genetic level, that we're creating adaptations and expressions that are going to build up our immunity, it sounds like, a little bit.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the environment that we're in, it tells our cells to turn on and off certain genes. Yeah, and that exposure to heat, yeah, it's just a benign, mild stress that over time it ramps up these heat shock proteins and just makes our cells healthier. Yet there's a lot to do with the immune system, as far as making the immune system stronger. I mean, there was a study on rats with sepsis. So sepsis is an overwhelming infection, where they, you know, in a research lab, they induced sepsis in rats, and ones that produced overexpressed heat shock proteins I think I have it written down, the survival rate was like 79% versus 31%. So more than doubled their survival rate during severe infection, having higher levels of these heat shock proteins.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And when I think about, and I don't know, this is maybe a little side note, but when somebody gets like some kind of a microorganism or a viral attack or something like that, and they go into you know, a state of trying to heal, your body goes into like a fever situation, that kind of heat, is there a relation to heat shock proteins and your body's ability to reduce like that? Is that
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's you know, whether it's kind of the cause or the reason that fever evolved is because heat does directly stimulates the immune system, and it also increases these heat shock proteins, which protect our cells from damage.
Wow. Yeah. So cool. I didn't know anything about heat shock proteins. I like that name. It's really kind of cool. Yeah, it makes me want to do more of the training in a way, you know, like I love the idea of certain adaptogens that we can eat and stuff, but what if we can actually just create our own natural genetic adaptability just from the temperature? I think that's super cool. Let me see what,
incredible.
What was that?
So they're pretty incredible. They're, I mean, like I said, if it was something that you could sell, you know, the pharmaceutical companies would be on it. And actually, there are clinical trials for diabetes specifically is one area, but there are clinical trials on drugs that they're trying to use to increase our heat shock proteins.
Really?
You know, because, you know, you can't sell it. Well, you can sell sauna, but I mean, yeah, they're really trying to
They can't patent the sauna though.
something that we can just expose our body to heat and naturally produce. You know, they're trying to figure out how to sell it in pill form. So.
Yeah, how can they put it in a pill with a whole list of side effects that we can then sit in the sauna to try to get out of our system, right? So it's so crazy. So let's add more chemical stress, trying to get rid of it. Anyway, so let's look at that though, detoxification. Now, I'm sure there's different studies that are happening. If we can just kind of look at an oxidation, like an oxidative load. So again, the chemical stresses that we have create an oxidation. Can you explain what oxidation is really quickly? So
yeah. So reactive oxygen species are molecules or free radicals or reactive oxygen species that they basically try to steal electrons from our molecules. They basically damage our molecules. You know, they can damage our DNA, our proteins. This oxidative stress. They're very reactive molecules, they cause cellular damage by breaking down our proteins and our molecules in our cells. And then our antioxidants, which we naturally produce kind of as a combat to these reactive oxygen species to neutralize them. So our kind of the health of our cells in a lot of ways depends on the balance between these free radicals, reactive oxygen species, and antioxidants.
Right. Got it. And of course, the oxidative stress is what's causing premature aging, cellular malfunction, organ malfunction, disease, and on and on and on, right? So the more antioxidants that we have, the less of that premature aging is going on. We're supposed to live way longer than we do. I just love the idea of age reversal, and it's kind of like my thing. And it's not about it's nice to look good, you know, obviously I want to live a really long time and look at it at the same time, which would be wonderful, but it's not about that. It's about functioning really, really well, you know, being strong and agile and clear-minded and able to impart the wisdom it took me half a life to get to, you know, like I always say, I feel like a teenager now. Like I finally got past all the childhood traumas and now I'm ready to go. And I don't want my body to fall apart. So having a sauna and some of these other tools that I teach about are like, it's like it's not even negotiable in a way, because there's such a bombardment of these types of toxins and oxidative stress in the body from all of these different stressors that we got to kind of pull out everything we got. So this is actually shown, these far infrared saunas are shown to increase some of these antioxidants more than we'd be able to do in a regular sauna or just sitting out in the sun.
There are studies that show, I mean, a lot of the benefits you get from the infrared saunas are just heating your body. It has a lot of benefits, but there are some studies that show that there's benefits to the far infrared beyond just the heating benefits. One thing that there's been a lot of research on vascular health, which is the root of cardiovascular disease, is the endothelial, the lining of our blood vessels dysfunctions. Far infrared has been shown to directly increase a molecule called heme oxygenase, which basically produces really powerful antioxidants. And yet there's a lot of research, a lot of evidence showing that oxidative damage and oxidative stress is really the root cause of aging. Right. One root cause is just its cellular damage due to oxidative stress.
And so the oxidative stress then, so just to go back to the endothelial function and the lining of our arteries and so much, that endothelium, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's really what regulates the constriction and blood flow, basically. And so you want a healthy endothelium, because if you don't, that's where a lot of that oxidative stuff can gunk up and then create blockages, basically, and poor blood flow and high blood pressure and all kinds of havoc. So having that function properly is huge for your energy, probably, Certainly, sexual function for men, right? Like that's a problem. That's where it tends to show, where it matters.
That's often one of the first symptoms of cardiovascular disease is erectile dysfunction. Sure.
Right. So you can say it all nice and, quickly. Anyway, so that's about endothelial function. So when you're saying is that when these antioxidants go, that's what you were saying. So oxidative stress and overall like different things that go sideways, we're really looking at systemic inflammation, right? Isn't oxidative stress kind of like inflammation?
Yes. I mean, it damages our cells. And one of the big areas of research, partly because of so many benefits with the sauna, but partly because cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in this country. So there's, a lot of the research is focused on cardiovascular health, and there's so much evidence out there, the benefits, but yes, so cellular damage, it triggers our immune system to act up. So that kind of, chronic state of pro-inflammatory molecules caused by that are put out by cellular damage causes chronic inflammation, which in turn causes more cell damage and more free radicals. And it's kind of, it can be a very nasty, vicious snowball effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so one of the other areas that I really love that I work in is around stem cell activation. And, as all of this is happening, our stem cells are going pretty much dormant. They're just not, they are normally attracted to inflammation, right? And there's natural things that we can do to up stem cell activity, including like intermittent fasting and things like that. But you can just see a direct correlation right here. If we can reduce the oxidative load and get these shock proteins, these heat shock proteins going and express our genes a little better, what's that going to do for the next time that cell turns over? We're looking at, I can see that as being a lot of healing that can happen really from it.
Yeah, stem cells, they're necessary to heal damage in a lot of our organs, our muscles. They're very active in repairing our muscles. There's actually an experimental treatment using stem cells with heart attacks, with cardiac damage, where they injected the stem cells into damaged heart tissue, in animals, and seeing if they can regenerate some of the healthy tissue. It hasn't been successful because, in the past it hadn't been successful just because that environment is so much oxidative stress in that environment, that damaged tissue. But they actually did a study where they pre-treated the stem cells with far infrared, and there's a significantly higher migration into the tissue and survival of the stem cells. And so, it's pretty exciting.
That's cool. Oh, that's a good snippet. I'm definitely, I'm gonna dive into that a little bit. That's cool. All right. Well, gosh, the time's going already really quickly. I want to talk about weight loss, because this is definitely something that I'm just going to transition. We know it's good for health, oxidative, metabolic implications, things like that. We already talked about genes and things like that. So moving towards weight loss, fitness, and energy. Those are the areas I want to talk about now. You said we could lose all these liters of, when you're in the far infrared sauna. Obviously, we're not just looking for water weight. Tell us about weight loss.
Oh, the fitness benefits are incredible. So, and going back to these heat shock proteins, so we produce those when we exercise. Our muscles heat up and we produce heat shock proteins. We also produce them when we are passively heated in the sauna. There is a lot of evidence really suggesting that a lot of the benefits we get from exercise are directly due to these heat shock proteins. So they, increase our metabolism. So there was a study in using rats, where one group, or maybe it was mice or rats, rodents. One group, they ran on a treadmill for 30 minutes, 5 times a week for 3 weeks. The other group, they saunaed in an infrared sauna for 30 minutes, 5 times a week for 3 weeks, so the same amount of time. The groups lost the same amount of fat. And then there was another group that they ran for 30 minutes and then saunaed for 30 minutes for the same amount of days and weeks, and they lost almost twice as much fat. It's really, really dramatic. So,
so the recipe then is work out and then get into sauna.
That was,
I
yeah,
wonder if
they
you can
lost.
flip-flop it.
Yeah, I don't know. They just happened to do the running and then the sauna. There's been some studies with the other direction too. Definitely improves your recovery time, so you don't get as much of the inflammation and that delayed onset muscle soreness. You recover faster after a workout if you sauna first, or just also just if you're heat acclimated, just regular sauna use, not even necessarily directly one or four after the other.
Got it.
Let's see, just heat has been shown to promote muscle growth, even just without any exercise. There's really incredible studies that heat the limb, regularly for an hour a day. There was one study for 11 days, an hour a day of heat, and their strength actually increased without any training, just with the heat. So,
wow.
yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's great for strength and for recovery, and so kind of a combination between the exercise conversation and the energy conversation. So like we're seeing changes in the mitochondria, is that right? So are we producing more energy from this heat shock stuff?
Yes, well, it increases our metabolism. So yeah, there was another study there with a group of mice that overproduced heat shock proteins. They weren't heated, but they were just looking directly at the effects of these heat shock proteins. They fed the two groups of mice, one with the high heat shock proteins and one without. They fed them both high fat, high calorie diets. The regular group, the normal mice, they gained weight and became pre-diabetic. The heat shock protein mice did not. They didn't gain weight. They didn't become diabetic. And they showed that there was about a 50% increase in the mitochondria, muscle mitochondria.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's really cool. And
stuff.
so then for those of you guys, for those of you watching, you're obviously watching, you're here. So what I want to remind you that the far infrared sauna heats you. How deep can it go that it heats your tissues? Like,
there's different. I don't think that there's a definite. I don't have a definite.
We don't know for sure.
But there's different people say different things. But it's directly absorbed by our cells.
But it's absorbed much deeper than you can tolerate from just breathing in hot air, right? Yeah. Hot air. So maybe that's what produces more of that sweat. That's because people are sweating a lot more in these saunas, basically.
You do. It hits you faster and deeper, at lower air.
Okay. So let's talk about how much water do we need, and are we concerned about losing minerals?
So I mean, like I said, you can sweat a ton. So you really, I would drink you can sweat up to 2 liters per an hour in a sauna. So, you want to be drinking at least that much water to replace it. And sure, you're going to be sweating out some minerals, which, you can just get, I would just be aware of getting, high, a diet with high minerals, green leafy vegetables, berries, nuts.
Okay.
Or an ionized water, mineral.
Yeah, so that's a little preview because we are going to be talking about that. So this being recorded, hopefully it's already going to be housed where you're finding this, but we are going to dive into the conversation about water. And High Tech Health also happens to have the best water machine, I believe, but there's a lot to learn and there's a lot of different kind of angles about water. So I've been fascinated just learning about water itself and what it can do. So we'll talk about that for sure. I'm excited. And it is important with this conversation around these far infrared saunas, because there is a lot of sweating going on. So, okay, so let me see if there's any other questions I have before we talk about the sauna. I want to definitely talk about wood types, off-gassing, some of these concerns that people have when they're shopping for a sauna, because I don't want this to seem like, oh, this is the only sauna you can get. I want people to feel equipped to know what they're looking for. So let me see if there's anything else I missed in my questions. Talk about sweat. Lots of water. Oh, how many times per week is recommended, or is there, I'm sure there's different protocols if you're ill that you might need to like ramp yourself up. Is there a standard kind of instruction?
We usually say to shoot for 30 minutes at 130 degrees at least 3 times a week. I mean, you can definitely do a lot more. We usually say, you want to start slowly, make sure you're tolerating it, start with shorter times if you're not acclimated to the sauna, if you haven't been using a sauna. Start at lower temperatures, shorter times, and then increase slowly. And we have a protocol that we send our customers to kind of exactly how to do that. You can, as with any sort of detox, as you're moving the toxins out of storage. So we normally store the toxins in our fat cells, and then the far infrared mobilizes the toxins so we can get rid of them. People with a really heavy toxic load sometimes will kind of feel a little more symptomatic before they start to feel better, as with any type of detox, as the toxins are moving.
Right. And there are some nutrients that, again, that I talk about that can help to mobilize that naturally. If they're in our diet, then your body can utilize them to naturally detox them out of your fat cells. But this could totally like ramp up that whole process. I can see that. And if you don't have those other ingredients, and if your liver and kidneys aren't working really well, that's where the detox symptoms can really kind of kick in, because now you've got toxins that are kind of, bombarding your system a little bit. So it is important to stay the course. If you're going to start something and you start to feel a healing crisis, keep going, like just more water, more rest, and keep going. Don't quit.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because then you will eliminate them. Yes. And there's so many, even just beyond, detoxification is a lot of times the first thing that people think of, but there's so many health benefits beyond that. So as far as the time, 30 minutes, at least 3 times a week, but definitely, I think more is better, as long as you're kind of acclimating to it and kind of tolerating it,
right.
Feeling good
So
with it.
So you're not going to like overdo it. So and actually this reminds me now, because I wanted to talk about emotional stress. You did mention endorphins and so on. I actually sit in my sauna longer than a half an hour, but it depends on the time of the year. If it's really hot time of the year, I don't tend to get into it as often, but in the winter, I can sometimes go 5 days a week, and I'll sit in there crisscross and meditate for an hour, or I'll read, for a little while, and then I'll just sit still, or, there's music. You can really choose it to be on a mindful time. Tell me a little bit about the benefits around emotional stresses.
Yeah, definitely. Heat has been shown to release endorphins. There's some studies using it, with anxiety and depression, showing really good results. But yeah, that's one of the first things when I first started using my sauna that I noticed, is just how good it feels. You just get an endorphin rush, and it's relaxing, and it's definitely been shown to be good for mood, and just brain health in general. Didn't really talk about, but there's some really incredible studies on brain health. So there was a study showing that regular sauna, it was a huge study, 2,000 people, regular sauna users that use their sauna more than 4 times a week, 66% less likely to get dementia compared to non-sauna users.
Wow, that's huge.
Incredible. It's incredible, huh? Yeah.
Well, and when you think about an investment like this is not a cheap machine, right? Obviously you're going to spend anywhere from, $30 and up for just a half an hour session at a spa. But what's the cost of disease, right? What's the cost if somebody does start to lose their cognitive function, or, any host of things that can go sideways when you're not healthy and clean. And so, again, I've thankfully had that mindset of, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And, unfortunately, much of, you're a doctor, much of the cure has really not been, it's been more symptom treatment than it has been actually causal point,
A lot of times it's putting Band-Aids on, whereas, prevention and promoting health is a much better way to go.
Yeah. So the value is, as far as I'm concerned, 10 times the cost. Easily, in not only quality of life, true quality of life, vibrancy, and just overall health, but cognitive function and so on. But what that can do down the road is huge. And I would imagine that the older you are and the more toxic you are, the more you're going to feel the benefits, right?
Yeah. And toxins, are, particularly, the brain is particularly sensitive to toxins, just because it's, our brain cells have such a high metabolism. There's all kinds of toxins that have been linked to dementia. There's, so DDE is a metabolite of DDT, which is the pesticide that was banned in the 70s. Which has been very strongly linked to Alzheimer's and dementia. Even still today, was banned 50 years ago. Even still today, 75 to 80% of blood samples from the general population are positive for this metabolite, DDE.
Oh my
They're just pervasive. You can't
Wow.
really avoid them.
And is that something that we can process out, that we can actually get out of our bodies with detox protocols?
Yeah.
I mean, not just the sauna, I'm guessing
Mm-hmm.
other things too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's, been a lot of studies on the composition of sweat and toxins in sweat, and the toxin concentration of many toxins, many pesticides, heavy metals is much higher in sweat than it is anywhere else in your body. So it's much higher concentration than in your blood. So, you're actively, when you're sweating, you're actively excreting these toxins, more, in a higher concentration than in your urine, so I mean, kidneys and liver, of course, do a lot for detoxification, but there's a lot of these pesticides that are higher concentrations in the sweat than in the urine or blood.
I'm going to say something kind of gross because I will say that when I get out of the sauna, sometimes it's not like the kind of sweat that you just feel when you're out on the beach or whatever running, where it's just kind of sweaty. It's actually like sticky sometimes. Like it feels like there's like something yucky coming out, even though I feel pretty darn clean and good diet. Like that, is that kind of the stuff that's...
Yeah, and that's true. What you said, there's definitely truth to that. The composition of sweat when you exercise can be very different from the sweat from when you're just heated or in a sauna. And part of that is because when you're exercising, you're building up lactic acid, a lot of the products of metabolism that you're sweating out. So those are kind of taking the place of some of the other toxins, so that when you're just passively heated and sweating, you're able to get rid of more of the toxins, because you're not competing with the toxins that you're building up from the exercise.
That's fascinating. That's actually really cool, because some people say, well, I sweat plenty, exercising, but it's a different pathway that kind of overrides. Interesting. Wow. Well, this is fascinating. Okay, well, let's just talk real quick now about the technology itself of far infrared. And I know that there's a lot of people that are really electromagnetically sensitive now, and they're noticing the difference in just, I don't know, all kinds of different things when it comes to Wi-Fi and all that. So EMFs, I know, are a concern now. So tell me, what are some of the concerns around that, and how has High Tech Health, or basically, what are we looking for? What are we looking for in a sauna when it comes to electromagnetic frequencies?
Yeah, so EMFs, are emitted by any electrical appliance, power line. And the problem with most infrared saunas are extremely high in EMFs, just the way you're sitting in close proximity to the high output heaters. EMFs have been shown to cause oxidative stress, cause cellular damage. They cause neuropsychiatric symptoms like trouble concentrating, trouble sleeping, headaches, kind of brain fog type stuff. And yeah, High Tech Health actually has a patent on the technology that virtually completely eliminates both the magnetic and the electric fields. So it's really as low as you can get in a sauna in EMF. Yeah, there's several other saunas that have managed to lower their magnetic field. So it's the electromagnetic field. There's two components. There's electric and magnetic. And there's several other companies that have managed to lower their magnetic field, and a lot of them advertise as low EMF saunas, and they just don't even mention the electric fields on their website. So just be careful if you're looking at a company that claims to be low EMF, be aware of that it's really important to have low both.
That's a good point. Thank you for that. I'll actually make a point of that too in the notes. High Tech Health has been around for a long time, so I understand that there's a lot of these companies that come and go. And if you're going to get a lifetime warranty, obviously you want to be with a company that's been around and knows their stuff. So can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lifetime warranty is only as good as the life of the company. And yeah, and another thing, so we have a 5-year warranty on our product. And the reason we do that is because, we feel like it's a little dishonest. So we make sure that we can cover you for, at least 5 years. A lot of these companies that offer lifetime warranties, the companies haven't been around very long. The parts aren't going to be produced forever, but the electronics, lifetime, what does that really mean? But our saunas they're made to last for decades. I mean, we have saunas that we've been around longer than almost any other company. We're actually coming up on our 26th anniversary.
Mhm.
We have saunas that have been running in health clinics, so running all day, every day for 20 years, and they're still going strong. We've
Mhm.
actually never had a heater just reach the end of its life. We've never had a heater wear out in over
Yeah.
20 years of selling saunas. Pretty incredible, but
Yeah. Well, even when I think about, I've had mine for 13 years already, and my husband and I both use it. And there's times when we use it a lot and it's going
yeah.
a lot, but it's not like a health club level, but, and it definitely has not spiked our electric bill either. So that's really interesting. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, our heaters are incredibly efficient. Yeah, if you're using it every single day for 30 minutes, it's going to cost you $2 a month extra in electricity.
There we go.
Our heaters are really incredibly efficient. Yeah. And that's why our 2-person, they get hotter faster than most other saunas with the, typical carbon-based heater. Our heaters are kind of unique. But our 2-person just plugs into a standard 15-amp wall outlet, whereas most other companies, they require a 20-amp electrical circuit and they don't get as hot as fast, so they waste a lot of energy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's really important then. And then let's just talk now about just materials that and off-gassing. What are people looking for in that?
Yeah. So the wood type is definitely important. We have 2 options of wood, but the standard wood that we've always used is poplar, which is just the cleanest wood you can get. It's virtually odorless. On the opposite end of the spectrum would be like a cedar, which has a really heavy wood odor. And a lot of people like the smell of cedar, but the reason that people line their closets with cedar is because it repels moths and insects because it's toxic, those gases, So, especially when you're exposing yourself to that and heating it and exposing yourself and sitting in a little cedar box, repeatedly, for long periods of time, you can definitely increase your toxic load. You can develop sensitivities to that. Poplar is it's the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's got the lowest off-gassing, the most odorless that you can get. We also have a hemlock option, which is much closer to the poplar than the cedar. And it's a little bit of a less expensive wood. So we have that option for people who don't have a lot of super chemically sensitive. If you're chemically sensitive at all, as a lot of our customers are, you want to stick with the poplar. It's the best wood.
Got it. Got it. Well, and you've got sauna sizes for 1 person, 2, 3. Personally, I don't like sitting in a far infrared with anyone else. It's just kind of, I'm sweating some yucky stuff. I don't really want to be next to someone else. I have a 3-person sauna. It literally is backed into a, typical size closet that I didn't need. And it just sticks out just a little bit in my room. It's fantastic. I just love it. But anyways, all that said, hightechhealth.com, HIGHTECH, HEALTH, hightechhealth.com is where you can learn about this. The water stuff is in there too. We'll talk about that on another call. Definitely check it out. Do your homework if you're interested in looking at doing a sauna. Maybe there's a spa in your area that you can go and try it out for a little while. Do some calculations, see how you feel, and see if it's something that would make sense to you. I really just recommend them. But again, this isn't meant to be a hard sale. I just know every time somebody sees it in my house, I end up going into this whole spiel. And so I thought it'd be really cool to invite an expert on straight from the company and be able to offer up this information. So I super appreciate your time. Is there anything else that we should know or do?
Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and tell you more how it can help your specific, health concerns and interests.
That's great.
Yeah, we have all of our product specialists have medical and science backgrounds. So, we really pride ourselves on being the most evidence-based company. And, we have a lot of information and we love telling you about our saunas. So
that's great. Well, I never did say any kind of a disclaimer. We're obviously not here to heal, treat, or cure anything. We're just here to educate. And I know that there are many conditions that the symptoms can be very much mitigated using a far infrared sauna. And one of those really, do the background. The sauna isn't the miracle, the body is the miracle. So we're really just providing an environment for the body to express and do what it needs to do better. So keep that in mind. I just want to make that very clear. But there are plenty of things, even the whole autistic spectrum, that I understand can be affected because again, there's just an accumulation of stuff that's going on that maybe can be moved utilizing a tool such as this. So, you know, do your homework and check it out and give it a try. And thank you so much again, Jenna, for being here. I super appreciate it. Excited to have either you or one of your colleagues on the next call. And I just wish you all great health. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Alix Sabatelli Rager, and this is Sweet Spot Power. And I just encourage you to, you know, step up into a higher expression of yourself. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.